Hey, welcome back to my channel. This is your host, G.I. Wingnut. So, I've been hearing some rumors. No, there's actually a headline out there about the CEO of Union Pacific asking Donald Trump to do certain National Guard deployments, which I find ridiculous. There is currently conversation going on between the mayor of St. Louis City and Missouri Governor Mike Kehoe, and there is this understanding that there is no current plan to deploy the National Guard to St. Louis. But Governor Mike Kehoe has said that he'd be willing to participate if Donald Trump asked him to actually send the National Guard into St. Louis. So, one of the things, the main reason I'm doing this video in particular is because I am going to take you down Manchester Avenue here in St. Louis, and I'm going to try to get it all in one run, and I'm going to try to do the entire length of Manchester because it runs alongside the railroad. So I want you to see what I can see here in respect to the railroad, and I'll later see about going out and about and doing some other videos about like things that are going on downtown. And there is going to be another No Kings protest coming up in October on the 18th. There will be 3 locations here in St. Louis that are planned that I know of, and I plan to get some sort of video footage of all 3 of those. Yes, I'm a big No King supporter. Anyway, this is relatively common for this part of town. Now, I'm not saying that St. Louis is perfect. Good Lord knows we got plenty of our own issues here. But I think a president listening to a corporate CEO is just a really bad call, because that, in my experience, from my observations, rarely, if ever, okay, I'll be honest, never plays well for the citizenry at any time in history. Okay, so turning west onto Manchester, on the east end of it, we're going to drive the entire length. One of the other reasons that I had thought about doing this particular video was because there's definitely, you can definitely see where the older portions are of Manchester Avenue. So you saw from that sign, we're going into the Grove. This is Tower Grove. And the Tower Grove district is recognized as the most gay-friendly district in St. Louis. Yeah, it's pretty chill here. You can see we got the city bus, Metrolink. They also have a train, Metrolink train. We won't interact with that today, I don't think. But I'll show that to you at some point. The city does provide a lot of good services, though. I witnessed a little heated interaction yesterday between some guy that was driving a construction truck and this really kind individual who has provided me with several cups of coffee. That's one of my, well, no, it is my favorite coffee shop here in St. Louis. I'll take you there sometime. I'm not going to put it out there today. But yeah, there was a less than positive interaction between this wait staff member at this coffee shop, this construction worker, and the friend that I was sitting there talking to, he's like, he immediately perked up and was wondering whether or not he should interact, if he needed to interact. And I'm a veteran, so my automatic thought process runs a little But being a veteran, my thought process, my immediate thought was, do I need to interact, and if so, on what level? I mean, while I was in the Air Force stationed at Kirtland Air Force Base, assigned with the Air Force Weapons Lab, I got tapped on the shoulder as a riot control augmentee and got an all-day training session on how to use a riot stick and correctly, so that you don't actually hurt somebody. How to redirect them with it, and just use it as a leverage tool, basically. But I also, got the opportunity to practice being a protester, to find out what these tactics would feel like. And so I had that under my belt, which is why I'm going to be going to No Kings 2.0. I was at the first No Kings. I have only been to one other protest so far, but with as heated as things are getting in our country, as convoluted as things get, yes, I agree with that sign. Epstein files now. But yeah, with as convoluted as the propaganda is getting, that's the main reason why I'm out here doing this. Here directly, we'll be able to start seeing the railroad tracks a lot better. And you'll be able to see that there's not a lot of shenanigans going along there, or going on. This is a complete new, different direction for me for my work, but this is going to be more in the journalistic direction that I'm going to be going. Just because apparently my life experience in words doesn't matter. At least not to some folks. Also, around St. Louis, there's a lot of different renovations going on, and I've been meaning to do this for a while, but I'm just absolutely motivated to get this stuff done. For one, I like driving around town. For two, the traffic's not too bad. For three, you can see so far, and right there to my left, you can see between the road and the building there's the railroad tracks. So we're running right alongside these tracks that freight rail uses all the time. And there's not even any graffiti there. No fence or nothing. Now, there are areas that have graffiti, and there are areas where anti-graffiti battles do happen, paint-wise. But, yeah. I just don't think that Union Pacific has any real complaints to make. But we'll find out as I continue this investigation, because this is going to be a multi-part thing. Recycling center right there. Yeah, I seem to be stuck behind this honey wagon. Not in any hurry to get around him, though. So I've been looking into some different ways of being able to determine better qualitative measures for determining what a cult is. If you've noted my posts on Facebook, or I'm sorry, on my YouTube channel, there is a guy that calls himself the cult expert, Dr. Steven Hassan. So far, I've run across two people that seem to shut down and that are connected in one way or another to Dr. Hassan. Whenever I start talking about, Operation Condor, and there's a lot of Americanized churches that were involved. And I posted evidence of the Unification Church being involved with the Sandinistas. They were already really comfortable. And if you look into the Unification Church's history, it all comes out of the United Nations liberating those concentration camps, those labor camps in what is now known as North Korea, which liberated Sun Myung Moon. And I know people will say it was the U.S. Army that did the liberation. Douglas MacArthur's tanks were part of the UN command. So Douglas MacArthur, General MacArthur, was working for the United Nations when the United States Army was fighting the Chinese in what is now North Korea. Anyway, so I have another playlist on my channel. It's a hearing, a Senate hearing. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but it's a Senate hearing from back in 1996, where the CIA was wanting to utilize media agents or thought newscasters might be withholding information. So they wanted to use media as a resource, like maybe they're withholding something from the people. And Dan Rather aptly pointed out that would be repugnant for a journalist to do. But also, the CIA was wanting to use members of the faith community, churches, to work as intelligence manipulation agents. And of course, rightfully so, the Catholic Church and a couple of other groups pushed back against that because they already have enough problems. But that's where Operation Condor comes in, because Operation Condor ran in the 1970s, and that was run out of Colonia Dignidad, which was founded by Paul Schaefer, an escaped Nazi. And Paul Schaefer was also a known associate of William Branham of the Latter Rain movement, the post-World War II tent revivals. And anyway, when I found out that Robert Maxwell was one of the financiers of Operation Condor, I got to asking questions, because William Branham has on some level, or did have on some level, a connection with Richard Nixon, even if it was only through the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship. And the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship was obviously then complicit with Operation Condor, which was a CIA operation. Who was one of the architects of the CIA plan? He was originally an OSS officer, and his brother became Secretary of State at the same time he became director of the CIA. Yes, I'm talking about the Dulles brothers, Alan and John Foster. Alan Dulles was the CIA director. John Foster Dulles was the Secretary of State under Eisenhower. And that all happened in 1952, which at that time, American politics voted for the president and the vice president separately. They didn't run together like we have now. So that's how Nixon ended up winning the vice presidential election. And personally, I think Nixon was supposed to win the Oval Office in 60, but Kennedy got it first. Got it instead. And then, there's the understanding that JFK wanted to shatter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the wind. Now, if you look at John Collins' work over there at Leaving the Message, you can find that there's, through Colonia Dignidad, through the JFK assassination, through there's a lot going on there. just check out the Dallas story in reference to William Branham when it over there on Leaving the Message. It just raises a lot of questions. Why didn't Trump release all of the JFK files? Could it be because it implicates the history of the faith movement that is now recognized as the New Apostolic Reformation? Came out of the Assemblies of God Church, the same church that gave us Jim Jones, the same faith system that gave us the PTL network and the 700 Club, you know, Jim Baker and Pat Robertson and Ken Copeland and Oral Roberts, Jimmy Swaggart Jr. Yeah, all them cats. And how many of those cats have gotten caught doing corrupt things? I mean, didn't Jim Baker do a stint in jail for fraud? Some sort of monetary corruption? Sun Myung Moon did too. And when Sun Myung Moon went into jail, he called himself the king of the world. And when he came out, he referred to himself as the king of the universe. If you do a little bit of digging, you'll find that Sun Myung Moon was crowned king of the world in the halls of the White House. Yes, there were members of Congress present. Both houses, both parties were present for the coronation of Sun Myung Moon as the king of the world. And I bring that up because Paula White praises Moon's widow, they call her Mother Moon, as the one true daughter of God. And Paula White is the alleged spiritual advisor for our current president. Again. Yeah. It gets wild. There's a whole lot more going on there. I might be able to loop back around to it. Anyway, this is another one of our nifty little neighborhoods. As you can see, it's nice and clean. Got some little businesses here. Some of it's local, some of it's fusion stuff. We've got so many different varieties of Asian food available here. And it's way better than what you'll find in one of those rural Chinese restaurants. You know, that Chinese takeout. We got Vietnamese, and Thai, and Chinese, and Japanese. And, oh my goodness. Oh yeah. Anyway, yep, we're still on Manchester. Just getting up here to Big Bend. If I was to go north on Big Bend there, I'd end up at Delmar, which I'll show you guys Delmar Loop at some point, and show you the Delmar Divide, which up there around Delmar, it shows a lot of the aspects of the apartheid history of the city of St. Louis, which is something else I want to dive into, because we're trying to do better than our past, and that's what I think we as Americans ought to strive for. Try to do better than our past. Try to do better than Indian reservations and race-based concentration camps like what happened in World War II with the Germans and the Japanese, or what's been happening with immigrants in the United States. Yeah. I might as well go ahead and say it. I like my America like I like my soda with crushed ice. These guys are just out of control. Although I have seen that California has been making some really good steps as far as like making moves to make it illegal for law enforcement to wear face coverings while on mission. I mean, pandemic masks, that's different, but like what we're seeing with ICE doing. And isn't it interesting that it looks like there are a lot of similarities between those that were recognized as a movement known as the Patriot Front, just how similar in appearance the ICE officers, some of the current ICE officers are to those Patriot Front boys. And then you look over at the group that refers to themselves as the Proud Boys, which I don't know how Enrique Ontario can get away with that, because there's that black church in D.C. that owns the trademark and the copyrights on all that, and yet they're still running around with it. I don't know why that church doesn't sue that little collective under Enrico Ontario for copyright infringement. They have all the rights to. I wish they would. I mean, I'm forced them to change their name. And then, yeah, there's an old meme of Meal Team 6, or the Gravy Seals. And if you look at some of those ICE agents, and you look at some of those other MAGA militia folk, you'll see that there are also some similarities in buffness as compared to like the Patriot Front, or the lack of buffness with groups like the Patriot Front and some of the 3%ers and some of those other keyboard warrior militias out there. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. I really liked seeing how the peaceful protest pushed back hard enough on the ICE agents, some ICE agents up there in Chicago not long ago, that forced the ICE to leave in shame. Unfortunately, they got away with one person, but fortunately, they did not get away with a couple of dozen. And for that, I'm thankful. But at the same time, a peaceful collective calling out the shame of these individuals infringing upon the constitutional rights of individuals in the United States. I mean, yeah. I don't know what other I should expect though from this particular movement. I mean, they used to claim to be constitutional Republicans, but now they want to just like erase it all. They want to. I know I've worked with, you know, I'm former MAGA, but I've worked with MAGA guys that said that they would jump at the opportunity to write a whole new constitution. They've been hollering for a civil war. They've been hollering for a constitutional convention. Things are too tenuous in our country right now, in my honest opinion. I mean, I have my concerns. But personally, I'm not really scared. Like I said earlier, I'm a vet. I've been through some stuff. I've never been in combat, not in the military field, but I've been stabbed, I've been poisoned, and I've even tried to end myself. But I'm 10 years into my recovery, and things are great. I've got this amazing partner that's just completely accomplished, just so competent. The woman's amazing. But anyway, back to the city of St. Louis. As you can see so far, there hasn't been any like buildings burning or piles of trash or just homeless people running rampant. I mean, we got our homeless here. We got well over 1,000 counted heads. We don't have nearly enough beds here, which is something I'd like to see changed. That's going to take time. And right now, with all the governmental cuts on funding, it's making it difficult for 501c3s to function in their typical manner. It's been difficult to pull things together for addressing the homeless issues, the unhoused issues. But yet, there's these rumors that this city is just this Democrat hellhole, and it's nothing but a cesspit, just a lost cause. Yeah, Nonsense. Let's see, we're 25 minutes into this video and we still got a ways to go. This is one long street. One really long street. Another reason why I wanted to take this one, because it gives me an opportunity to just run down Missouri 100. And as we're getting further out here, you're going to start seeing the economics of the city and this part of the city declining because of the historical nature of the neighborhood. But then when we get out to what was the suburbs are now the outer reaches of the greater metropolitan region, there's an immediate jump in the economic quality. In other words, what I'm getting at is I am not afraid to show you the truth about St. Louis and its apartheid and express to you that I do believe wholeheartedly, especially now, I mean, yeah, Social Security, Medicaid benefits and all that. Poverty is a policy issue. It's not about somebody putting in so many hours. And I missed a lot of the time that my kids were growing up because I was working 50, 60 hours a week. And when they were a lot younger, I was working 60, 80 hours a week. I wasn't home nearly enough. And that may have set things up to fall apart later. I don't know. I made a lot of bad decisions along the way, but I'm a lot smarter now. Oh, yeah, okay, maybe I've already driven through the quote-unquote low-rent district, because there is just this absolutely massive Audi dealership here on our left. When I came by here one night, that place was lit up like a football stadium. And then you get on down the road, and there's used car lots with strings of incandescent bulbs. Well, they're probably LEDs now. But just, those strings of light bulbs like used car lots from the 70s had. And it's just wild. But again, I'm not seeing the city burning down. Like I said, I'll on another video, I'll take you into some of the areas that I consider the rougher parts of town. I'm more than happy to even take requests if there's other parts of the city that you want to take a look at, if there's particular things here in St. Louis that you want to take a look at. I'd like to eventually be able to maybe go to the museums and stuff. I've been wanting to go do some videos on the local libraries. The main library downtown has got some really cool architecture to it, some absolutely amazing history. Met a very delightful librarian there. She's just absolutely passionate about her job and the history of the room that she works in and the building itself. And we just had a really amazing conversation. I was kind of tired that day too, because I was just exploring the city, trying to figure out all the neat stuff. Lots and lots of neat stuff. Another thing I like about St. Louis is if you present yourself to other people in a non-threatening manner, they're not going to puff up on you. If you just present yourself as a calm, cool, collected individual, and not causing any problems, nobody's going to give you any grief. Nobody's going to give you any grief. If you are in crisis, there's chances that somebody will either try to help you or try to find somebody that will help you, try to reach out to somebody that will help you. Possibly even calling 911 for you. know I keep saying that, but I feel like we're under a threat, man, because yeah, we don't need the National Guard here. And quite frankly, I prefer driving in St. Louis to driving in Columbia, Missouri. I find it a lot easier. But I know some MAGA-minded individuals that live in rural regions that are absolutely terrified by the idea of driving in St. Louis. They're just terrified by the population. Which reminds me of that time not so long ago that a certain Charlie Kirk went to New York City and commented how scary it was to be riding the subway in New York City. Now, I personally haven't been to New York City, and I've never ridden the subway there, obviously. If I haven't been there, I couldn't ride the subway. But I spent some time in London, and I spent some time on the tubes. And I met some really cool people back in the 80s that had like rainbow mohawks and stuff. And that's where I met them, was on the tubes and in the streets. And they were really cool people. So I know a few people that have multicolored or different colored hair than your average, whatever that is, individual walking down the street. So then that's one of the things that I've noted about folks that have an extreme conservative mindset, especially like the hardline MAGA. They're scared of everything that they don't know, anything that they don't understand. And they're not willing to put in the time to try to actually learn it right. And quite often, it's been my experience, they grapple with information that might be intellectually out of their grasp without asking questions from somebody who may understand the subject better. And then they try to translate that information to the best of their understanding, which is they don't understand. But then they still come to distinct conclusions, which is why MAGA can't figure out if the earth is flat, if it's a plane, if it's a hollow globe, or if it's a spinning ball with water on it. Now, personally, I think it's we live on a spheroidal planet that's 75% water. I personally believe that the climate is getting warmer. These massive, dramatic, high-impact weather events are proof of that. If you have any understanding of meteorology, of course, my mom helped me with that. Between 4th and 5th grades, we were sitting there, it was over the summer, I'm sitting there with my parents, we're eating dinner, watching the evening news, and I got curious. It's like, how does the weatherman understand how to read the map? And by then, I was already falling in love with maps. And there was a little NOAA radar station right outside my little hometown of Monette, Missouri. And Mom, being the newspaper lady that she was, made arrangements to get us a private tour of the radar station. And the station chief or director or whatever his title was, the top dude there, gave my mom and myself a private tour. And the computer that they used was tube type. So it's in a super cold room, you know, and that's kept dark, and it's all isolated off to the side. They had this giant printer, and they could print off the entire nation, one big map. And he explained to me the iconography, you know, hot front, cold front, stable front, high pressure, low pressure. He kind of gave me a basic explanation. I mean, he explained it to me to where a 5th grader could understand it. And that ended up putting me ahead of the curve. I remember sitting there in 5th grade general science class, and we were studying weather cycles. I remember that piece of paper that was laying there on the desk. And it's like, I remember it looking like just a quick sketch of that somebody had done sitting down by Table Rock Lake. You know, you got this water and you got some trees and you got this slope. And so I doodled a little campfire on there because, you know, I was big into camping at that time. And then I'm imagining in my head getting caught in a rainstorm because I've never been camping where there wasn't rain. And, yeah. I guess I made an audible sound. I don't know. I was really deep in my head. I disturbed class and I got in a little bit of trouble. It wasn't anything major. I just basically got called out. It's not like I got a paddling or anything. Although I did get one paddling in elementary. But that wasn't until 6th grade. Then I didn't get in trouble in school again until my senior year. But so now we're out here on highway. And yeah, Manchester Road East. So that is, I do believe, the entirety of Manchester Road on West 100 in St. Louis, Missouri, on this glorious sunny Friday. What is today? September 19th, I do believe. So, yeah. I'm gonna turn around and go back. I hope you all have a great day. And I'll be bringing you another St. Louis video at some point in the not too distant future. Check y'all later. Bye.